Welcome back, fight fans. We're back, and we're going to be talking, of course, about last week's fights. That's UFC 275, then The Ultimate Fighter, and then, of course, this week, which is UFC Austin. So we'll start off, of course, with last week. That was UFC 275, all the way back in Singapore. Whoops, my computer's almost falling over. There we go. And we'll start off with the prelims. So that opened up with Jocelyn Edwards and Ramona Pascual. There was a pretty clear difference right from the start, with Pascual kind of cutting down to make 145, whereas Edwards not really cutting much weight at all. Thanks to that weight, it was kind of clear Pascual wanted to take the fight to the ground. Edwards also pretty clear in the strategy, lighting her up on the feet early, keeping Pascual at a distance. After a couple minutes of the striking, Pascual finally tried to take the fight to the ground there, but was shot down by Edwards. That pattern continued for the rest of the round until Pascual managed to land some huge shots on the fence, turned Edwards into a wrestler. Tough round to score, really, honestly, and that actually did happen a couple times throughout the night. Oh my god. The mic is getting caught on the table. Not a great setup so far. What was I going to say here? Tough round to score, with Pascual getting some pretty big moments late in the round, and Edwards kind of leading the action for the rest of the round. Pascual used that momentum, though, from the end of the round, pushed early into the second, forced Edwards along the fence. As the round went on, they moved back to a slow, kind of striking heavy matchup, with Edwards chipping away at Pascual with some kicks from a distance. Pascual grabbed the takedown with about 10 seconds left in the round. Obviously, that had no effect on the cards there. But honestly, really, I had no idea really how to score it up until that point. It was pretty close. I was kind of thinking maybe 1-1, maybe 2-0 in the Pascual direction, but realistically, I mean, honestly, Edwards could have been 2-0 either, but it was so close. It should be pointed out, though, that Edwards seemed to be struggling a little bit with the cardio and with Pascual's game. Maybe sensing that Edwards was slowing down a bit, Pascual went in for the early takedown. Couldn't quite grab it, though. After shutting down a couple more takedowns, Edwards started to pick it up again, really started to get that striking going. And then thanks to that activity, I would have given the last round Edwards, which would have pushed her ahead 2-1 on my cards. But really, again, it was so close. I mean, to open up the night there, was so close that it really could have gone either way. In the end, the judges did agree. They went 29-28, 29-28, and then one of them had it 30-27 for Edwards. The second fight, much shorter. Silvana Gomez Juarez and Liang Na. Way faster right from the start. The pace was going heavy right away. Both of them started to get some crisp combos going, but Liang was running forward, trying to grab for a takedown. Sadly, that was probably her demise there. Ran in a little too hot, got rocked by Silvana, got knocked out cold. A rare, really explosive KO win in the women's strawweight division there, which we saw another one later, but we'll talk about that later. That was, of course, Weili. But a nice KO to open the night there. The first prelim that I was going to talk about, that I talked about last time, was Kyung Ho Kang and Dana Batgeti. I was picking Dana by decision going into this. He's the younger fighter. He's been doing better, fighting the better people, seemed to be faster, more power. So I was going with Dana on this one. As expected, they both kept it going on the feet early, tried to pick each other apart with the striking. pretty dead even, really. But Baghetti did seem to be the one landing the heavier shots, stumbled Kang a couple of times. The second round opened with a huge flying knee, stumbled Dana for a bit. Kang started to get more active throughout the round, really started to throw out that jab at the chin of Dana. That being said, Baghetti was still the one landing the more significant strikes, except for that knee, of course. But yeah, overall, kind of seemed tied to me going into the final round. Again, another pretty close one. Excuse me. Kang kind of carried that momentum into the final round, though, really lighting him up. Excuse me again, with the crisp jab, keeping Dana at a distance. While Baghetti kind of was, what was I going to say here? Getting more and more wild as the round went on. Of course, trying to win that final round on the cards, trying to get the decision or at least go for a finish. I mean, you got to do something at that point. I was gonna say, trying to grab a finish. Kang kept the tight, crisp striking going, whereas Dana, like I said, getting a little more wild with it. But sadly, sadly for Dana, I should say, Kang kept the tight striking going and edged ahead on the cards in my mind there. It was a tight stand-up battle, really could have gone either way, but I did give it to the veteran Kyung Ho Kang, 29-28, and the judges did agree, scoring it again 29-28 for Kyung Ho Kang, the veteran. The next one after that was another one that I was talking about last time, Brendan Allen versus Jacob Malkoun. I knew this was going to be a close one, but I did say that Malkoun, because of his wrestling and because of how Allen has kind of been struggling recently, I was going with Malkoun on this one, but I knew it was going to be really close, really close, and it really couldn't have been too much closer. Allen did start off the action early, as we expected, getting a striking going, trying to keep Malkoun back, because we all know Malkoun very much wanted to get the fight to the ground, so you gotta kind of wait for your shot there to then jump in and get the takedown. After a bit of striking, though, Malkoun finally did get that chance, got the wrestling going, shot in, dragged him down, but Allen did get up fairly quick that first time. The second time, though, Malkoun did keep him there, took Allen's back, and started controlling him. Allen did manage to get back up, and it was actually Allen who slammed Malkoun back onto the canvas. And Allen did sink in a pretty nice guillotine attempt, but Malkoun did get out of it and then found himself on top. Probably not the best idea for Allen there. After getting a lot of control time there, clearly seemed like Malkoun was up 1-0. That's how I had it on my cards. Allen landed a couple of decent shots to open the second round, but once again, Malkoun turned to that wrestling. Of course, the whole game plan dragged Allen back down once again and really controlled him for most of the entire round, pretty much. But did find himself reversed by Allen with about 20 seconds left in that round. So, I mean, that was a clear round for Malkoun. So, personally, I mean, I don't really know how you could have scored that any other way. It was 2-0 for Malkoun, definitely on my cards. I mean, Allen didn't really do anything. So, to me, it was pretty clear at that point. Knowing he was likely down on the cards, Allen did come in hard, dragged Malkoun to the ground. Malkoun got up pretty quick. They moved back to the striking from there. And then for the third round in a row, Malkoun started to control the fight along the fence and on the ground. Allen did make it interesting, though. As the fight hit the canvas, Allen started to reverse Malkoun and found himself in a dominant spot on top. Because of that, I would have scored it 29-28 for Malkoun. I thought it was pretty clear, but the judges somehow went the other way with it. Scored it 29-28 for Allen. It's just one of those fights, I don't know. There's at least one every week now. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that was another one that seemed a little weird to me. I don't know, maybe Malkoun wasn't doing enough damage in that opening round, but still, you got to think with, I think it was at least, it was like a couple 2 or 3 minutes of control time, and Allen didn't really do anything. So to me, I don't know how you could score that anyway, but Malkoun, I don't know. I don't know. After that, we saw Maheshate and Steve Garcia right away, not leaving anything to chance. They both let everything go. Maheshate landed a huge one first, stumbled Garcia. From there, though, Garcia did pin him along the fence, landed a bunch of shots of his own. But after that, Maheshate got out of it, and Garcia ran straight at him. Again, just like Liang Na there, got hit with a bomb, knocked Garcia out with a clean KO in Maheshate's UFC debut. So amazing, amazing debut for Maheshate. Yeah, another weird decision by a veteran there. You can't run in like that. And Liang Na did the exact same thing twice in one night. I mean, which I would say two fairly big favorites in my mind. Got got dropped the exact same way. You just can't run in like that. You can't underestimate new people like that. After that, we saw Joshua Kulabau and Sung Woo Choi went to a decision here, or maybe a slightly questionable decision. Sung Woo Choi, the huge favorite going into this one. They started off a little slow, careful not to really get hit by anything big, of course. It was pretty dead even, but Kulabau was kind of slightly ahead with his extra activity early. As the round went on, though, Kulabau smoked Choi with a couple of huge shots, melting him along the fence. Just as it looked like the ref was about to stop the fight early, Choi recovered and actually started to land some huge shots of his own. Clearly, the opening round went to Kulabau on that one. Carrying on the action of the opening round, they kept the wild striking going into the second. Once again, it was actually Kulabau that landed the big one first, knocked down Choi once again. As the round went on, though, Choi started to get his striking going, landing some crisp promos of his own. And then we went on to the third round. I would say it was pretty close at that point. I mean, what was I saying here? Probably 1-1. I didn't write it down, but from there was Troy's fight. Yeah. I would have had it. Actually, maybe. I didn't write it down. Anyway, where are we here? As the round went on, Choi started to get his striking going. Okay, never mind. We already talked about that. The third round. Where are we? Choi opted to stay away from the striking, which is probably what he should have done earlier. He probably should have done that earlier because, I mean, you get, especially after getting knocked down in the first, the second round probably should start doing some more grappling if you're already kind of getting picked apart there. Maybe. I don't know. If I was the coach, that's what I'd be saying. Pushed Kulabau along the fence and down to the ground. And from there, it was really just Choi's fight. And Kulabau didn't really have a whole lot for him down there. Choi took his back, worked for submissions. On the cards, though, a little bit too late. I mean, he got knocked down in both of the opening rounds. So I had it 29-28 for Kulabau, but the judges were split, having it 29-28, 28-29, and 29-28 for Kulabau. So it was close on the cards. I would say Kulabau definitely did edge ahead in that one. But yeah, all Choi had to do, second round, all he had to do is probably get the grappling going there earlier, and it might have been a little different story there. But then we went on to the main card. That was Jack Della Maddalena, Ramazan Emeev. I had Della Maddalena by decision going into this, just because Emeev hadn't really been finished yet. So I I wasn't sure if Maddalena was going to get it done like that, but I did think that he was going to win a close decision. I also thought Ameev was probably going to get some wrestling going and make it a lot closer, probably winning a round on the cards for there. That's what I thought was going to happen. Instead, though, Della Maddalena got his striking going early. Ameev did drag him down to the canvas and started to squeeze the life out of him, really getting a submission going there. But Jack managed to recover, exploded with his striking, and dropped Ameev. Got the ground and pound going, a bunch of strikes going to get a fantastic, amazing first round TKO win for Jack Della Maddalena there. Amazing, amazing performance. After that, we had Jake Matthews and Andre Fialho. I'm not going to lie. I really thought Fialho going into this, I wouldn't really say was a lock, but I definitely thought he had a very, very good chance of winning this one, especially by finish, because his power is insane. He's got the crisp striking, and Matthews doesn't really have that. And he's been having, he had close fights with people that some of them aren't even in the UFC anymore. So it seemed kind of like a mismatch to me. But I guess I was wrong on this one. Fialho, extremely patient to start, let Matthews work with his striking. Matthews kept working through the round, easily taking it on the cards, really. Fialho couldn't really get much going in that opening round. But Fialho started to come alive right at the end of that round, dropped him with a crisp shot. But again, a little bit too late after that whole round. At the start of the second, it was pretty clear that Matthews was really feeling it. I mean, having an amazing performance at this point. Started to land massive, massive shots at will, just over and over and over again. Stumbled Fialho over and over again. Dropped him multiple times. And it took quite a few of those bombs, but finally Fialho dropped to the ground, and Matthews got the finish with a couple of quick shots down there. And that was it in the second round there. Completely unexpected, I gotta say. I was pretty shocked by that one. Moving on, we had the first absolutely insane, huge fight of the night. That was Zhang Weili and Joanna, of course. I was going Weili by decision on this one because, I mean, at this point, we've all heard about or seen the last fight, that 5-rounder, of course, probably the greatest, if not the greatest women's fight of all time, definitely the best women's title fight of all time. I mean, just absolutely insane last time. So I figured, Joanna got the durability. So I think she'll last until the end. But of course, you really got to think that with all that extra activity and the fact that Weili seems to be getting better as she goes on in her career, obviously, because she's still fairly young. That Weili was going to edge ahead. Well, not edge ahead. That Weili was going to win a fairly dominant decision here. Instead, that's not quite what happened. Continuing where that first fight left off, they went right at it right away, lighting each other up with massive, massive combos. Joanna landed a couple of early shots, but then Weili started to string together some huge, huge shots, dropped Joanna to the canvas. From there, Weili was just assaulting Joanna with the hellish ground and pound. I mean, it was crazy. She's so good, so good. She managed to get up, Joanna managed to get up, but it was pretty clear that Weili grabbed that opening round on the cards. I mean, just insane. So good with the striking. The second round, no different really. Both of them exploded right away with the wild combos all over the place again. Looked as though Weili was going to cruise through the round with some more huge shots, but then out of nowhere, landed an absolute nuke. The spinning back fist out of nowhere, straight to the ear of Joanna, dropped her right away, leveled her with a walk-off KO. No need to follow that up with any shots. walk-off KO for the win for Zhang Weili there. And the second round too. And as Dana White has been saying, I mean, and pretty much everyone else, I've been saying it too. The winner of that fight clearly lined up for the next title fight against Esparza. Esparza did recently say, though, actually this week, I think it was either Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember. She was saying that Weili has to go based on her timeline. I don't really know what that means. I guess, she did just get married, wants to go on her honeymoon, I guess, slow down a little bit, and then move back to another title fight preparation, I guess, to defend her belt for the first time. So I'm assuming what she means by that, we're not going to see this within the next 2 or 3 months. I'm assuming she means we're going to be seeing this, 4 to 5 months down the road, because of course you do have to defend your belt before the 6 months is up, or else you get the interim belt, which would probably, of course it would be with Rodriguez and Zhang Weili, because those are really the only two that seem to be lined up for another title shot. Because it won't be Rose and Weili again. That would be kind of a strange way to do the title shot, even though that would be an entertaining one. I mean, Rodriguez clearly is in line to get it. She's beaten everybody else except for Esparza, so it just makes sense. So that's what we'll be seeing, either one of those. I mean, it would be kind of silly if we saw an interim title shot, because there's absolutely no reason. I mean, Esparza didn't even get hit at all, really, in the last fight, so it just wouldn't really make sense to have an interim belt like that. I don't know. That would just be pretty bad on the champ's part if that happened. So that's what we're going to be seeing next. Weili and Esparza for sure, which means that we're probably seeing Rose and Rodriguez, and then the winner of that would get the next title shot. And then for Joanna, of course, sadly, she is now retired. No more Joanna, which is very sad. Amazing career, incredible champion. So tough to see her go. But I'm sure, I wouldn't even be surprised actually if she ended up being a member of the broadcast team or in the UFC in some other way. I can really imagine her doing that. So I hope that happens. She's really smart and in talking about MMA too. So I think she'd be a great addition to the broadcast panel there. I'd like to see that. Otherwise, I'm sure she'll be cornering some other people, and that's not the last that we will see of Joanna. Then we had the co-main event, the first title fight of the evening, the flyweight title fight, Shevchenko and Santos. And I really thought it was way closer than these odds originally suggested. And I said that right away. There's a reason why these odds were the closest they've been for Shevchenko for quite a while. There's a reason for that. I did have Shevchenko going by finish, getting a finish in this one, but I did specifically say that the first and second rounds were probably going to be all Santos on the ground, and that she was probably going to get tired and Shevchenko would get ahead and probably get a finish near the end. If not, just the decision by winning 3 rounds. And my God, was I very accurate on that one. Both of them took it pretty slow to start. Valentina did make the first move, landed a couple of counter jabs, pinned Santos along the fence. From there, though, it did exactly what I thought was going to happen, and it did surprise a lot of people, I'm sure. But Santos dragged Valentina down and took her back, I would say easily taking the first round on the cards there for Santos. I mean, yeah, Shevchenko couldn't really get much going, and Santos got the takedown and took her back. That to me is a first round. That's a round in her favor there. In the second round, Santos kept that momentum going, found herself on top of Valentina in the dominant position once again. Valentina did try to work for a submission from the bottom, but the ref actually did end up standing them up. Not much activity going there. Valentina slammed Santos down to the canvas, but Santos managed to reverse positions, regaining that dominant position. And really, I mean, I think it was pretty clear that Santos was up 2-0 at that point. I mean, when Valentina's getting thrown around like that, controlled along the fence and on the ground, getting reversed from her own takedowns, didn't really land anything on the feet either, except for a couple of jabs. And of course, her usual kicks, but nothing crazy. So, to me, she was already 2 rounds down, which is exactly what I said was going to happen. But still, seeing it happen and playing out, of course, is a whole different story. In the third, though, as expected, like I thought was going to happen, Valentina did really start to get that activity going, because she knows that if she's not down on the cards, it's at least very close, and she should really start getting some dominant rounds in there. Of course, she is very, very smart, so of course she was going to get that going. She did keep Santos at a distance. From there, she grabbed a takedown, but to the shock of many, Santos actually jumped up right away. From there, Santos started to work harder, pushed Valentina along the fence, and eventually slammed her down to the ground and took her back again. Not really, again, not really clear which way this one went. I would have probably given Shevchenko that round, but it was pretty close though. The fourth round is really where it started to take a turn, though, mainly because of a very, very unfortunate clash of heads that shut Santos's eye immediately. Could not see out of that. I think it was the right side. I can't really remember, though. What was I saying? Taking advantage of that situation again, because she is very smart, got that crazy fight IQ, really started to target that one side, of course, because if you can't see anything coming, you can't defend it. So of course she kept going on that one side, landed some huge shots, and Santos did close out the round with another massive takedown, but that was a clear round for Valentina right there, because of course, all the strikes, and then the shut eye, the damage. Of course, that was Valentina's round right there. And then in the final round, where are we? Right here. Valentina did push hard right away, lit Santos up with another massive combo. From there, she tried to land a huge takedown, but was quickly reversed once again. Santos took her back with that one. And finally, after 4 rounds of working, Shevchenko grabbed a takedown and found herself on top. She was trying to move towards a finish, but the clock was running down there. She ended the fight on top, but to me, by that point, it was out of reach. I did give the fight to Santos 48-47. So my bad about the third round. I did give the third round to Santos, which means that I thought Santos won the opening couple rounds and the third in this case, and then Shevchenko won the last two. But yeah, the judges they were split and seemed to be watching really a whole other fight. One of them even scored it 49-46, which is definitely in the lead for the worst judges card of the month for sure at this point, because there is absolutely no way that Shevchenko won 4 of those rounds. 3 of them questionable, but a 4th one definitely not. In any case, would that be reasonable to give that to Shevchenko? So yeah, the judges ended up giving it 48-47, 47-48, and then 49-46 for Shevchenko. Like most people, like I said, I did think that Santos won the fight. Cormier even said after all the fights were done that he really thought Santos won. I saw it online all over the place. I heard a lot of people, even in the post-fight press conference, talking about it. I mean, yeah, I am definitely one of those people that definitely thought that Santos won that fight, but it was very, very close, of course. But what's next? I mean, really, there's no reason why we wouldn't see a rematch, especially considering it's a split decision. When you've got a split decision in a title fight, normally it would make sense to run that back until you get a decisive decision that, you want something unanimous or a finish. That's what you want to see in a title fight. Because winning a title fight off of a split decision, that's arguably not even really producing a true champion right there. So no reason why we couldn't see a rematch, but it doesn't seem like that's what we're gonna get, which seems a little weird. What was I gonna say? This is yeah, because this is also the only time that Shevchenko's even really struggled. So it kind of makes sense to run it back just to see, like, okay, is Shevchenko gonna rebound, learn from all that, and get a good win, or is Santos going to come back and do the exact same thing and win a decisive 5-round decision this time? Or I mean, I don't think she's going to finish Shevchenko, but she definitely could get a pretty dominant decision win. So what's going to happen? I don't know. I'd like to see the rematch, but I don't think that's what we're going to see. She did talk about in the press conference, I'm talking about Shevchenko this time, she wants to move back up to 135 and go for that belt. Whether that's Nunes or Pena, of course, we'll find out after. I believe that's actually next month in July. I think that's when that title fight is. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's August. But yeah, so we could see her do that, but personally, and somebody else actually asked this at the conference, but I've been saying this. I've been saying this for the last 8 or 9 months. I don't really know why she doesn't go down. Like, she's already. I wouldn't. She's not the biggest person at 125. She could easily cut down to 115, and she would absolutely destroy anybody who's down there. So, I mean, personally, I think that's the smarter move. Try and even be the triple champ. Go down, win 115, which honestly, I'm pretty sure she would, especially if we're talking about Esparza or somebody like that. I think she'd have uh, the easiest fight in years against Esparza. Um, but yeah, would probably beat anybody down there. But Weili would give her a good fight. I should say that. But anyway, so yeah, she could do that and then even go up to 135 after that. And again, like I said, maybe be a triple champ, but that's slightly less likely, I would say, because she's really going to struggle with those bigger women, because that's exactly what we saw in this one. And that's exactly why I knew it was going to be close. That's why I said it was going to be so close, and that Santos had a very good chance, because Santos is that much bigger. She is really 135, but cuts down quite a bit to make 125. She is huge. And that's exactly why Shevchenko lost to Nunes in the first place, because Nunes is so big. I mean, Nunes fights at bantamweight and featherweight. So, of course, she's going to have that huge advantage. And the same thing would happen again, whether that's Pena or Nunes, that size is going to be a problem. So, I think it makes a lot more sense for her to go down to 115. But she said it's more likely she said she is considering that, but that she's way more likely to go for 135. So, we'll see. I don't know. Everything's up in the air with Shevchenko. I mean, we could see 135, we could see 115, we could see Santos again, or we could see somebody brand new. There's who knows at this point. There's so many options for her, especially considering she now has the record for the most title defenses in a single division, I believe. Yeah, or in the women's side maybe. And then yeah, I don't know, some other kind of record. I don't know. Records all over the place for Shevchenko, really. The main event after that was our second title fight, the one that everybody was looking forward to. Glover and Jiri on that one. And I was thinking it was going to be Jiri by finish, just because I thought over time Jiri was going to eventually hit Glover with something so big that even he couldn't recover from it, and that we were going to see a TKO or a KO here to continue that KO streak that Yuri's been doing since all the way back in, I don't, where was it, KSW? I can't remember. Anyway, so yeah, that's where I was going with that one. As expected, of course, Jiri came in, threw some huge shots at Glover. Then right on schedule, Glover started to go in and get the wrestling going, dragged Prochazka down to the canvas. He did manage to get back up, but Glover dragged him down again fairly quick. Took a while, but Jiri actually ended the round on top, which is pretty amazing. Slammed his fist into the face of a pinned down Glover. That was the opening round there. So pretty close. I mean, really back and forth on that one. I'm not really sure which way I would have scored that. I would have to watch it again and tell you, but off the top of my mind, I can't remember. But it was very close. The second round, though, Jiri came alive, smoked him with some massive shots, dropped him, stumbled him multiple times. So, I mean, already clear round for Jiri here. Out of nowhere, Jiri had a very unfortunate slip. Slipped on the canvas there. You hate to see that. And Glover used that to jump right on top of him and end the round on top. But I mean, clearly at least 1-1 there, because Jiri was obviously ahead in that round thanks to all those knockdowns. The third round opened up the same way as the second. Jiri landed some clean shots, stumbled Glover again, and oh yeah. Over and over. I lost my spot in my notes here. And somehow Glover kept recovering from that. He would just stumble him over and over again. I mean, just absolutely insane. And he found himself, what was I going to say here? He did shoot in for takedowns, though, Glover, in response to that, which again is insane that he was even making it through all of these knockdowns, because I mean, anybody else, like literally anybody else, would have been gone by then for sure. Jiri made a mistake and did get reversed because he was landing some ground and pound to close out that third round, but he did get reversed. But clearly up 2-1 here, so I did end up giving that opening round to Glover, because yeah, those two middle rounds clearly in favor of Jiri, thanks to all those stumbles and knockdowns and all that. The fourth round, more huge strikes from Jiri, of course. What else could you possibly expect from Jiri? Where are we here? I'm starting to lose my spot more often now. But was quickly taken down by Glover this time. Glover sunk in some deep submissions, but amazingly, Jiri actually shrugged it off, to the surprise of a lot of people, really, because a lot of people thought, oh, well, as soon as Yuri's going to get taken down, that's it for Jiri, and we're gonna see Glover defend his belt, and that's it. That's what a lot of people thought. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think that he was gonna get submitted, because I knew how good his submission defense was. So I didn't think that Glover was really going to get a submission, but I did think that he was going to lay on top of him and control him to win the decision. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen going into this if Jiri didn't get a finish. But yeah, Jiri was doing great to shut down all those submission attempts. Somehow actually managed to reverse him again. I mean, there was a lot of reversals here, which is very impressive for Jiri, because I mean, if I really don't think he would have been able to do that a couple of years ago. I really don't. So he's been improving quite a bit in that area for sure. Really looking like a champ. Just as it looked like, oh yeah, they kept. Wow, I skipped a spot there. They kept swapping positions over and over again. Seemed like Glover probably won that, though. Like, you know, kind of 2-2 going into the final round. It was really close, though, but I think most people kind of agreed that it was tied going into that final round. And to open that up, Glover was the one leading the action this time, landed some bombs, wobbled Jiri actually, and just as it looked like Glover was going to get a standing TKO, I have no idea why, and they said it on the broadcast too, no idea why he went for this, but instead of finishing with the strikes, which he almost guaranteed would have gotten a TKO if he would have just poured it on just a little bit more, maybe 5-10 extra shots, probably would have gotten a finish there. Instead, he actually dragged him down and found himself on the bottom. Jiri just fell right on top of him, and that huge mistake, and that really led to the end of the fight. Really, they got back up there. Actually, no, they did get back up though, and Jiri threw out a combo, but I mean, he was recovered at that point, of course. Just as it seemed like he was getting tired. Oh, it did seem like he was getting tired though. I mean, of course, when you get dropped like that, especially after 4 rounds of all the wrestling and all the huge striking attempts, Jiri was very much getting tired, and he's also never been in a 5th round either. You got to remember that. Glover used that to his advantage, dragged him down, and started to control him there. Unbelievably, though, Jiri then took the top position, and what came next, I don't think anybody really could have seen coming. Jiri found himself on top in the dominant position. Oh, took Glover's back from there, sunk in a deep submission, and made him tap, be grabbing the title. The first champion from the Czech Republic. Absolutely insane. Huge fan. I mean, I was already I'm a fan of both of them, but huge fan of Jiri. So to see that happen, especially a finish like that, I mean, that was absolutely insane. Also, clearly the brawl of the night bonus from me, and the submission bonus from me. Lots of bonuses, actually. We'll get into those bonuses in a couple of minutes, but yeah. But what's next, though? I mean, it's almost exactly the same, actually, of Shevchenko and Santos, because really, Glover would have won that by decision if he would have just been able to last for another minute and a half. We would have been seeing Teixeira grab the belt again. So it was that close where it's like really a rematch would make a lot of sense. But again, it just doesn't seem like that's set up to happen here. Glover, oh, it seems as though Jan has been promised the next title shot. We discussed that after Jan's last fight. That was, of course, against Rakic. So that seems to be where the UFC is going with it. Personally, I mean, I think it would make sense to do a rematch, especially considering Glover's near the end of his career. So, he already said he's got about 2 fights left in him. So a rematch would have made sense here. But instead, what I think you're probably going to see, again, Jan getting the next title shot, because he seems to be promised that already. And then the winner of Smith and Ankalaev will be challenging after that, because again, that seems to obviously be the clear way to go, because those are the only 2 that are separating themselves from everybody right now. As for Glover, like I said, he's made it very clear that he is going to fight again. He's not ending after that loss, likely only a couple more times, and he specifically said that. For those ones, I mean, if he doesn't get either a rematch or a way to get back into it, whether that means maybe the winner of Smith Ankalaev, I don't know. I would say he's just going to get some legacy fights. Those fights that the fans want to see. The fans that, I mean, the fights that he deserves to end his amazing career. That's what he'll probably have next. But yeah, the bonuses, super easy. I mean, these are the easiest bonuses I've had to hand out in a long time. I gave the KO of the night, of course, to Zhang Weili. I mean, spinning back fist against Joanna to knock her out clean like that. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And that's, if not in the lead for the best women's KO of the year, in second for sure, because Molly McCann is definitely in that conversation with the spinning elbow, or was it the spinning back? No, I think it was a spinning elbow. So I mean, those two are neck and neck. I don't know how I'm gonna decide who's gonna be the KO of the year, but those are the two that are in the lead right now for sure. And the sub of the night, of course, you can't give it to anybody other than Jiri, because I mean, seriously, he submitted Glover, who was supposed to submit him. I mean, that's what everybody would have thought was going to happen, or at least control him on the ground. Instead, the huge striker Jiri gets a submission for the belt. So of course that's a submission. That's the submission of the night. The brawl of the night, again, no question. Obviously the main event there, Glover and Jiri. And then the most valuable fighter, I did pick two this time. Of course, I went with Jiri. So Jiri walked away with 3 bonuses this time. Because, of course, like I said, everybody knew he was a striker, but to see him do what he did on the ground, even reversing Glover multiple times, it's not like it was a fluke that he just got a submission at the end. I mean, unexpected for sure, but he still reversed Glover multiple times on the ground throughout the fight and controlled him there. So, to do all that, very impressive. Plus, you got to remember, it's only his 3rd fight in the UFC, his 3rd fight. So, obviously deserved a bonus there, and he got the belt. So, very much deserving of the bonus there. And I also gave one to Taila Santos because, like I said, in my mind and the mind of many, she really is actually kind of the champ right now. She beat Shevchenko. So, yeah. And also even if she didn't win, even if you don't think that she won the fight, you have to admit that she easily gave Valentina the toughest fight since fighting Amanda Nunes. And for sure, I mean, if you don't think she won at least 2 of those rounds against Shevchenko, you should probably stop watching MMA because you have no idea what you're talking about. So clearly a huge, huge prospect in Santos. And honestly, I'm convinced, I was even convinced before this fight that she was going to be a champ at some point. But now, with what she just did, I mean, as soon as Shevchenko is done with her career, or maybe even before that, Santos will clearly at some point end up being the flyweight champ, because I just don't see anybody else in the entire division that seems to stack up at all, except for maybe Chookagian. But even so, I would say Santos would probably beat Chookagian pretty easily, really, because we just saw Amanda Hebos control Chookagian on the ground, and she is much smaller than Santos. So if Santos goes in there with Chookagian, you're either seeing a finish or a real dominant decision there. So, yeah, future champ right there for sure. Before we move on to this week's stuff, we will go over to The Ultimate Fighter, which I just watched last night, of course. And last week, of course, we saw the flyweights go at it, a rematch. Was it a flyweight? Yeah. The other flyweights. I forgot the weight classes all of a sudden. That was between Claire Guthrie and Juliana Miller. Of course, we saw Juliana Miller win a tight decision there. Very close fight. Probably the best fight of the season up until that point. Up until this one, really. Actually, I don't know. Maybe the flyweight one was slightly better. It was pretty close, though. Both of the fights were really good. Anyway, in this one, though, we saw the final heavyweight quarterfinal matchup, and that was Chandler Cole from Team Nunes and Jordan Heiderman from Team Pena. And we actually saw at the end of last episode that Chandler Cole tore one of his ligaments in his elbow. So really couldn't get his wrestling going. But the doctor did specifically say that he could train and he could fight. But yeah, could not get his wrestling game plan going. And that really is his whole approach to fighting, is his wrestling heavy approach. So already not a great start to the week from Chandler Cole. But anyway, outside of that, very interesting guy. Honestly, hilarious. I really like the guy. I'm a fan. I really am. And I know we're going to be seeing him a lot throughout the show, I can tell. Even though still injured, he got his housemates trying to get his housemates motivated by his alternate persona there, Fitness Chandler, nonstop workouts with that guy. Just hilarious. What a guy. What a guy. That lovable character. He's got a 3-year-old daughter, works as a corrections officer and a wrestling coach. Great guy, great stand-up guy. You love to see that. Which again is always why I love this show so much, because you get to learn so much about the fighters before they get into the UFC, or if they ever make it into the UFC. But you see what a lot of these fighters deal with, and also who these fighters actually are, because that was he also had the story, of course, where he grew up really poor, actually living off of food stamps, and said that quite often they would run out by the end of the month, and ended up either not eating or basically eating almost nothing at the end of the month. So really struggled growing up. And his whole goal then would be to show that, hey, you can get out of those situations and then achieve your dreams by getting into the UFC. That was his whole goal and his whole approach to this show. And you love to see that. You want to see somebody with a message and an uplifting goal and message behind it. So that was Chandler Cole. On the other side of it was Jordan Heiderman from Team Pena. Not as much of a story behind this one. Really, the only things that they said was that he was a welder, and then he quit before the show to really try and focus on being a professional fighter. And he actually came into this at 5-0, completely undefeated. Amazing. And physically speaking, Heiderman came in a little bit lighter at 247. Still pretty big though, and actually bigger than a couple of the other heavyweights on the show, because there are a couple of people that came in the 230 range. So he's still not the smallest heavyweight in the competition. Plus, he did carry in a huge height and reach advantage into this one specifically. And Chandler Cole came in cutting weight down to 265. Cole got his offense going early with some beautiful kicks. He may be a short, huge, roundish kind of guy, but my God, can he move? He's fast, a lot of skill. I mean, just these kicks were absolutely insane. He was really pushing the pace, landing some great combos, and Jordan wasn't really doing much. He was pretty inactive, I gotta say. The highlight of the round, though, and really the whole fight, I had everybody on their feet. Absolutely sensational. Huge spinning wheel kick out of nowhere, landed flush right on Heiderman's head and dropped him backwards onto the canvas. Looked like it was going to be ended right there. I mean, seriously, looked like the fight was just going to end. But somehow Heiderman got back, recovered, and survived the round. Obviously, that round went in favor of Cole, because, I mean, Heiderman didn't really do much of anything, and then Cole landed that just insane wheel kick out of nowhere. Cole kept that momentum going into the second with a lot of heavy kicks going again. And finally, halfway through the round, Heiderman started to land some crisp jabs and combos. It was close. It was a close round, and clearly the judges kind of thought, oh, it was close enough. Let's give it to Heiderman so we can see a third round. But honestly, I kind of thought that it was done. Like, I kind of thought that was 2 rounds for Cole. So technically on The Ultimate Fighter, that fight is done. But I did kind of understand, but I gotta say, a lot of other people didn't understand, including Dana White. Pretty pissed, actually, that it kept going, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyway, it did keep on going into the third round. And where are we here? Judges said, I lost myself in my notes here. Just like the opening round, Chandler landed another bomb, but Jordan actually replied with one of his own this time. And in response, Cole went in for a takedown. Really needed to get that wrestling going because he was pretty wobbled. And from there, Heiderman just let loose the ground and pound and didn't stop until the ref pulled him off. That was it. That was it. Yeah. Dana was actually kind of upset about this a little bit. Amanda Nunes, the coach of Chandler Cole, kind of pissed too. They all thought, Cole won the first 2 rounds. You win the first 2 rounds on The Ultimate Fighter. That's the end of the fight, which means that Cole would have won. I understand that. I really do understand that. But at the same time, if you're talking about a normal fight, if this would have been in the UFC, there would have been a 3rd round no matter what, and Heiderman would have gotten the finish. So, if you look at it from that perspective, you got to think that, okay, Heiderman kind of won the fight because he got the finish in the 3rd round, and that would have happened in the UFC either way. So, it's kind of 50-50, like, do you go with the concept of the show where it was supposed to be done after 2 rounds and you give Cole the win? Or, in a true UFC fight or any MMA fight, you would have gone to the 3rd round and that would have happened. And then Heiderman would have gotten the finish. So it depends how you look at it. It really does depend on how you look at it. But either way, both of them great. And I mean, Dana was so impressed by Chandler Cole. And I mean, I think everybody was really. Actually, I know everybody was because they showed the locker rooms after, and every single person, even Juliana Pena, the coach of the other team, was super impressed with how Chandler Cole was. And I mean, I was super impressed. I mean, I would say he's actually the most impressive heavyweight fighter of the season so far, because I wasn't expecting that at all, for him to be able to move like that and to land all those huge shots against somebody who's undefeated. That was crazy to me. So I'm sure, I guarantee you we will see Chandler Cole again. Sadly, out of the heavyweight, out of the Ultimate Fighter there. But who knows, maybe he'll get subbed in later. Maybe somebody will get hurt and they'll throw him back in. And, I wouldn't even be surprised if Dana White put him on that finale card in his own matchup against somebody else. I could really see that because he was so good, so impressive, so good. I could easily see them doing that, or even just giving him a shot on the Contender Series, or even just giving him a spot at heavyweight right away, because there's not a lot of heavyweights coming up that especially fight like him. So, I could even see him getting a contract anyway, or at least a 1-fight contract just to see how it goes. I could really see that. So yeah, not the last we're going to see of Chandler Cole. I guarantee you that. In next week's episode, we will see the final quarterfinal for the women, and that would be Hannah Guy from Team Pena and Brogan Walker from Team Nunes, who actually injured her knee in an earlier episode, if you remember that. That was where, of course, they got the alternate in because I think it was Chantel Coates, perhaps. I think that's who it was. Coates had to leave because she couldn't cut the weight, was about 20 pounds overweight, so she couldn't cut it. Brought in the alternate, and Brogan was supposed to probably fight that alternate, but of course she injured herself, and Nunes rearranged those matchups. So now we're finally going to see Brogan go in there against Hannah Guy. So that is what we will see next week. And before we talk, of course, about this week's card, UFC Austin, we will take a short minute break. I will see you right after this.
Allow me to introduce Pie Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back. UFC, no, I was going to say UFC Vegas, but it's not Vegas this time. We're actually back in Texas this week. UFC Austin. I can't wait. You got to love these destination cards with the crowds, of course. Man, you got to love the energy from the crowds. And an amazing card. Seriously, this is one of the best cards we've seen in a while. And really, actually, a lot of these matchups are more exciting than what we saw last week, I think. So we'll start with the main card, and then, of course, we'll go on to a couple of prelims that I want to talk about that look very exciting. So we'll start off with the main card, and that, as of now at least, is opening with Julian Marquez and Gregory Rodriguez. It's a close one here at middleweight. 2 Dana White's Contender Series alum, by the way. Marquez back on DWCS, the Contender Series, back in 2017. He won that against Phil Hawes, actually, who we will actually also see. We won't talk about him this time because the matchup, not as crazy as some of the other matchups. It's still going to be an exciting fight, of course, but not as exciting as a couple of the other ones. But he is also fighting on this card. Anyway, followed that up with a 3-1 record in the UFC. All of them have been by submission, which is bizarre, actually, because he is not a grappler or a wrestler or anything by that stretch at all. He is actually a striker and has just happened to drop all of his opponents and then just gotten a quick submission while they were basically half knocked out. That's what he's been doing. What was I going to say? As for Rodriguez, the exact opposite. Well, not the exact opposite, actually. Very much a submission artist. Incredible on the ground. And he is also absolutely massive. This guy does not look like a middleweight at all. Seriously, he very much looks like a light heavyweight. He is absolutely huge, and I have no idea how he makes it down to middleweight. So that is the matchup there. It's tight, but I would say that Marquez's style is going to be his downfall this time. His last 2 fights against Alvi and Patolo, not really the best couple of guys to have wins over. I mean, it's like, Alvi on his 8-fight losing streak, and Patolo got cut, I believe. So, yeah, not a lot of UFC success there. Uses accurate striking, though, to eventually catch them and drop them to the canvas. The problem with that in this matchup, though, is that Rodriguez is much bigger than him. Much, much bigger. Like, not even close. Much larger, which means he really does have a lot of extra power behind his punches. And he's also got amazing grappling skills, and he's got huge strength in those clinch situations and, of course, on the ground. And that is not going to go well for somebody like Marquez, because he tends to get hit a lot, and he tends to get controlled along the fence. So you can imagine when you're fighting somebody that's this big, that's this strong, not a great matchup, and he will probably get controlled along the fence on the ground. Might get finished, but honestly, I think we're probably just seeing a dominant decision by Rodriguez here. That's what I'm going with on this one. And if you look at the odds on Bet99, I've got the banner, please. There it is. Moving on to the odds. It is actually fairly close, but it does favor Rodriguez at minus 184. Again, makes a lot of sense. Marquez plus 150. So obviously we're going with the favorite here, minus 184 Rodriguez. That's still fair. Put money on that one. That's where I'm going with it. And the over-under is at 2.5 rounds, of course. Makes sense. Neither one of them, both of them end up in a lot of decisions. And the over is plus 120. The under is minus 155. Like I said, I think it's going to go to a decision, but I do see a finish definitely is plausible for Rodriguez with all that extra strength and power. I would probably go take a chance on that over. I mean, it's plus 120. They're both pretty durable. Marquez hasn't been finished. Actually, I don't think he has anyway. He's been losing, but he lost by decision in the UFC. That's it. So, I think the plus 120 is where the money's at here. That's what I'm thinking. Next up is probably the closest matchup of the night, and it's a very interesting one. I mean, it's hard to tell which way this is going to go, but it's going to be very exciting. Really a matchup between two people that are pretty much guaranteed to be in the top 15 at some point. I really do believe that. You've got Damir Ismagulov on one side. I had a weird nose thing there. That was weird. He's got a record of 23-1. 23-1 with a 4-0 UFC record. He's got wins over Thiago Moises and Rafael Alves, which is a new name, but Alves, very, very dangerous guy. On the other side, unbelievable Georgian striker here, Guram Kutateladze, only making his second UFC appearance, but actually ended up with a split decision win over Gamrot. And Gamrot we're actually seeing in a main event in just a couple weeks. I think that might even be next week. So, I mean, you can imagine that's obviously a good win to have. I mean, he's headlining next week. So, very impressive. And he sits at 12-2. So both of these guys, incredible. I seriously cannot wait for this fight. Both of them have an incredible MMA record, and both are unbeaten in the UFC, but that will obviously change with this matchup. They're very closely matched. They really are. But to me, I think Ismagulov just has the slightest edge in this one. He may only have decision wins so far, but those wins have been dominant decision wins here. He uses his striking to pick people apart at a distance, and then he quickly shoots in for takedowns and controls his opponents on the ground. In all of his fights so far, he's knocked down his opponents, and that even includes Thiago Moises, who, if you don't know, Thiago Moises is pretty good. So to knock him down too and dominate him like that, that is something special here. And thanks to that crisp striking, never mind. Guram is also an amazing striker, but he did struggle with the wrestling of Gamrot. And Gamrot is very good. I mean, again, he is headlining next week. So, remember that too. But Gamrot did take him down fairly easily, and no knock against Gamrot here, but a couple of those takedown attempts that he ended up landing were pretty lazy. They weren't like the clean takedowns you'd see from Ismagulov has clean takedowns, but the takedowns you'd see from even Chandler or I don't know. I'm trying to think of clean wrestlers like Khabib. Obviously, that's a clean takedown. Any good, like really good wrestler, they have super sharp, super clean takedowns. You can try and defend them, but if it's in the open, you're going to get taken down. These ones were pretty lazy, I got to say, and he still got them. He only grabbed onto like an ankle from a distance and he got him down. I mean, not great takedown defense, I got to say. And I think that is the difference here, is that Ismagulov, very well rounded, should be able to take advantage of that and get some grappling and get some clinch work in and win it like that. That's what I think is going to happen here. So I've got Ismagulov by decision, but it is very, very close. The odds -163 for Ismagulov and Kuta Teladze at +130. So it is pretty close, but again, safer bet to go with Ismagulov on here. Remember, of course, again, he is at 23-1 with a 4-0 UFC record. And Guram hasn't really been quite as active. That's another part of it. And he's sitting at 12-2, which is, again, still very impressive, but not as impressive as 23-1, of course. So you got to give the slight edge to Ismagulov on this one. And the over-under, very much favoring the over on this one, -220 over 2.5 and +166 under 2.5. I think that's pretty fair. I would say we're going to be seeing a decision for sure here. So I'm going with the over on this one, -220. Excuse me. The next one, Joaquin Buckley and Albert Duraev. Another Dana White's contenders. Actually, a couple of them here, I think, right? Actually, I didn't write. I think Buckley was on the contender series. I didn't write it down. But Duraev, very much from the contender series, only has one fight in the UFC so far since that win on the contender series. But my God, was it dominant. Dominant debut. Did not write who it was against. It wasn't against anybody important, though. But a very dominant win there. Looked fantastic. And Buckley, my God, has Buckley been good. Only joining in 2020, by the way, but he's gone 4-2 since then. Very active and very successful. Huge wins over Jordan Wright and Antonio Arroyo, and actually, of course, grabbed that 2020 knockout of the year with that spinning back kick over Impa Kasanganay. Looked like some actually jumping switch kick, was it? I don't know. It was something insane. I think it was a jumping switch kick because, yeah, just like seriously, something out of a video game. Just spinning jump straight into the chin of Kasanganay, wobbled him. Kasanganay clean KO straight on the canvas like that. Seriously looked like something out of Street Fighter. Unbelievable. Craziest KO I've ever seen. So KO of the year from Buckley. Literally, he actually did win the bonus there. But anyway, so yeah, obviously got the power advantage here. Duraev comes into this on a 10-fight win streak, but really doesn't look all that favorable, at least to me. And I'm looking at the odds now. It's the first time I've seen the odds this entire week, and I am shocked to see that Duraev is actually a huge favorite in this. We're going all the way on the underdog this time. He struggled to get takedowns in his debut, and it was Kopylov. I actually did write it down. He struggled to get takedowns against Kopylov, and Kopylov is not a very big guy. So already, and he's not a wrestler either. So to struggle against Kopylov like that, that's concerning because Buckley is probably the biggest guy in the entire division. He is huge. He is absolutely massive. So way bigger than Kopylov. And he's got some great grappling skills. So with that combination, I mean, he was also dropped by Kopylov, by the way. So, I mean, you got to think with 3 unbelievable KO, TKO wins from Buckley, including that KO of the year. I mean, his power is unbelievable. Plus that strength, the size. of Buckley. I just don't see how Duraev is going to compete with this. Like I don't know if he'll really be able to do much in grappling with him. I would say Buckley's going to be able to reverse him easily, probably even get some takedowns of his own if he really felt like it, laid on top of him. Plus, he's got all that striking power on the feet. So to me, I really think Buckley is the clear choice on here, and I'm going Buckley by finish. I really am. I think Duraev is going to have one hell of a time with this one. And the odds on this one, like I said, heavily favoring the Duraev side at minus 234. Buckley at plus 183. So, I mean, we're going all the way on the underdog on this one. Plus 183. I think it's the clear choice here. I really do. So, yeah, put some money on the underdog on this one. The over-under minus... It's weird that they're favoring Duraev, but they're going an over-under on this one of 1.5. That is very conflicting because Duraev is not... I don't think he has a chance at getting a finish here. I really don't. So, yeah, it just seems bizarre. These are just weird betting lines. Minus 158 for over 1.5, plus 122 for under 1.5. I will say I think he'll survive long enough to get over the 1.5. So I would say the minus 158 for over 1.5 is probably the safer way to go. But I mean, because of this power mismatch, you really could see a first round KO from Buckley on this one. So you could even maybe want to side with that under 1.5 at plus 122. It's how you're feeling on this one. If you're feeling risky, why not go for that plus 122? It's not crazy to think that Buckley is going to get a finish here early. But maybe the safer bet is that one, minus 158. After that, we've got the return of Kevin Holland, this time going against Tim Means. Oh my God, I can't wait for this one. I gotta say, they're doing Tim Means dirty on this one. And this is not a good matchup for him. Kevin Holland going back down to the welterweight division again, his new home, it seems like. Really struggled at middleweight only because of the wrestling. Had a lot of KOs. Huge knockout artist, seriously unbelievable striker, but struggled a lot with, of course, the grappling and the wrestling of the heavier guys. But we saw in the Dawkins fight, after he dedicated a lot of time to work into that grappling and wrestling on the ground there, really did well. Dawkins, who is very good, who again I'll actually talk about in a few minutes here, actually probably about 10-15 minutes, is an insanely good grappler and wrestler here. So the fact that he couldn't even take Holland down is saying a lot. Plus, we saw in the last matchup, which it was at welterweight, Alex Oliveira, amazing submission artist, also struggled with Holland. He did end up taking him down one time at the very end of the first round, and that's where we saw that incredible thumbs up moment from Holland there. Still struggled to take him down, though, up until that moment. And Oliveira, by the way, beat Tim Means by submission. So already, this seems like a bizarre kind of matchup, considering Oliveira, I would say, is better than Tim Means. So Holland already fought the tougher fight. So I would say you're just going to see the exact same thing this time. You're going to see a Kevin Holland finish. That's what I'm calling here. First or second round KO. That's what we're going to see here. Yeah, Means he tends to fight at range, then goes in, and he gets hit a lot and gets a takedown. That's what his style is. And I mean, you can't fight at a distance when you're fighting I think he actually is the longest person in the division with an 80-inch reach, huge reach advantage. I think he's got a 6-inch reach advantage. So you can't do that against Holland. You cannot fight him at a distance. And if you try and run in and get hit a lot, you're going to get knocked out immediately against Holland. So again, it just doesn't work. So how is he going to get past that? I just don't know. I honestly do not see a way that Means is going to be able to get in there and even get a takedown. And even if he tried to go for a takedown, I think Holland is probably going to shut him down because he's also just really tall. So he's just hard to take down even before he was hard to take down. Now that he's actually worked on his wrestling, that height, I mean, how are you going to overcome that? I just don't know. So terrible matchup for Tim Means. Holland, I mean, we're definitely putting him in a parlay here. I can guarantee you that. Minus 286 for Holland. Tim Means plus 225. So yeah, Holland for sure is going to be in a parlay. The over under, actually, interestingly, is at 2.5 rounds, and is actually favoring the over side. Over 2.5 rounds is minus 134 right now. Under 2.5 plus 105. And I think based on what I just said, I think you can probably guess I'm going towards the under on this one. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, he knocked out Oliveira in the second round last time, and I would say Means has an even worse chance. So I think we're going to be seeing a first, maybe a second round KO. But yeah, I think that's a no-brainer to put on the under. Seriously. I mean, a plus 105, that's insane not to put it down, really. In the co-main, after that, we've got the Cowboy. Cowboy returns to Texas. How about that? Against Joe Lazon. Of course, we were supposed to see this matchup, well, twice now. This was supposed to happen like 6 weeks ago, even before UFC 274. Then we saw it was supposed to happen at UFC 274. But then, of course, the Cowboy had some rough tacos and had to pull out. That is actually true. He got food poisoning from tacos. I don't know why you would have tacos before a fight night, risking that. But who knows? It's Cowboy. So anyway, we will finally see the matchup. And we already went through this whole conversation the first time we talked about this. And I think we even talked about it the second time. But we'll go with a third time. I'll just shorten it this time. We're obviously going with Cowboy again. I talked about it before. He's just a lot bigger. He fights at welterweight. This is his first trip down to lightweight in a long time. Lazone, honestly, is a pretty small lightweight too. So just in that size alone, Cowboy has a very clear edge. Plus, he's more active. He's got he's better on the feet. He's better on the ground. He's been way more active recently. Joe Lazone, honestly, really just hasn't been all that active the last couple years. And Lazone just happens to, he does have crisp striking. He's got some great striking ability, but he gets hit a lot. And that is not good when you're facing Cowboy. So with all the extra experience, activity, strength, size, determination to get a win, Cowboy has the clear edge in this one, I would say, very obviously. Minus 172 for Cowboy on the odds. Lazone plus 140. You might even want to throw this into a parlay because I really think he holds a pretty clear edge in this fight. He really does. The over-under on this one, 1.5 rounds, minus 150 for over, plus 116 for under. And that's actually very interesting because I distinctly remember this being said at 2.5 rounds just a couple weeks, just at the pay-per-view. So that's a little strange that they switched their minds on this. So I'm going with I think it's going to be a decision. I mean, Cerrone, Cowboy could easily get a finish here, but Lazone is pretty tough. So I think we're going to be seeing a decision or at least a later finish. So, I think the over is a pretty clear way to go on this at minus 150, especially since, like I said, I think actually at UFC 274, I'm pretty sure this was at over under 2.5 rounds. So it seems weird that they switched it like that. So, nothing's changed since then. I don't know. So yeah, it seems like clear to go with a minus 150 or the over on this one. Then we've got the main event. Oh man, is that going to be good? It's a great main event. It really is. Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett. Don't let the odds fool you on this one. I mean, they're going to show Cater is definitely a favorite in this one, but it's really close and it really could go either way. And I cannot stress that enough. It really could go either way. Um, Obviously we know not Holloway. We know Cater now because of his Holloway performance. I mean, got absolutely destroyed over 5 rounds. But then he followed that up with an absolutely incredible striking performance against Giga Chikadze, who is also an amazing striker. So to do that, I mean, seriously, if you didn't watch the fight, it was so dominant. It was just absolutely incredible. He basically did to Giga what Holloway did to him the year before. So looked absolutely unbeatable against Giga. On the other side, though, Josh Emmett, also a very dangerous striker, and is now in the number 7 spot, whereas Cater is, number 4 in the rankings. And he got that number 7 spot with wins over Michael Johnson, Shane Burgos, and in his last one was Dan Ige. So when you see 2 incredible strikers like this matched up, I mean, either guy could be knocked out at any moment. And that's exactly why I'm saying it really could go either way, because Emmett has the power advantage here. He's an awkward striker and he is huge for the division and also lands bombs. He is a finisher for sure. So you easily could see that happening here. You could easily see an Emmett finish here. But what does have me leaning towards the favorite, Cater, in this case, is the fact that they've both fought Ige. And Ige fought Cater, I think it was a couple of years ago, and he kind of struggled with him. And yes, Ige's gotten better since then, but Calvin Cater is so much better since then. Way better, like not even close. He's so much better since then. So, and what did I say? And he did pretty well in that matchup. But Emmett kind of struggled to the point where it wasn't even clear if Emmett had won the fight or not against Ige. And this was just a few months ago. So based on even that alone, because he does get tired, because he is so much bigger and he throws everything into his punches, he does start to slow down, whereas Cater does not. And because this is a 5-round fight, that is what has me leaning more towards Cater, because yeah, it's that 5-round fight, and I just think Cater's going to grind him out to win that decision. That's what I think is going to happen here. We're going to see another decision. And an interesting fact, actually, that I saw on Twitter from Aaron Bronstetter, my fellow Canadian, is that actually in the last, I think it was 2 years, he said, only one top 10 featherweight has been finished. And that was Volkanovski finishing the Korean Zombie just a couple months ago. That is the only top 10 featherweight finish in the last 2 years. So even just based on that alone, I don't think we're seeing a finish. But yeah, the only way I could see a finish is if Emmett probably knocks him out clean. That's the only way I could see that happening. And it is plausible, but I mean, Cater's got one hell of a chin, as we saw against Holloway. And even Giga. Giga hit him quite a few times with a couple of big ones too. So I just think that Calvin Cater is just going to edge ahead in the decision. And Emmett may edge ahead early thanks to that power. He might stumble and rock. He probably will actually stumble Cater a couple of times in the first couple of rounds. But I think after that, Cater's going to get his crisp striking going and just pick Emmett apart and get the decision win. That's what I'm seeing here. But it is super close. The odds -240 for Cater and Emmett at +190. I'm not putting this in a parlay because Emmett does have that one punch knockout power. So it is close enough that I'm not sure if I would put that in a parlay, and not in the main parlay anyway. I like to do multiple parlays. So in a shorter parlay, keep them out of it. In a longer one, then you put Cater in it maybe. But yeah, that's how I see that. Oh, and the over-under, of course, 4.5 rounds. So they're very much seeing this as a decision as well. Like I said, especially considering that stat that Aaron Bronstetter showed, that pretty much all top 10 featherweight fights end in decisions. It's safe to say this is probably going to be another one of those decisions. Minus 140 for over 4.5, plus 110 for under. I'm, of course, going with the over minus 140, and that's really not terrible odds for that either. So that's where I'm going with that. There are a few prelims that I'm going to talk about, and it's already actually people that a couple of them. Oh, one of them, which we're going to start off with first, is somebody that I had already talked about, Kyle Daukaus going against Roman Dolidze. This is a great middleweight fight. It really is. It really is. It looked as though Daukaus was going to be in the top 15 after beating Holland. Because, I mean, he didn't really win the fight. There wasn't no contest. But if he would have won the fight, he would have gotten that top 15 spot. So honestly, I was pretty surprised, actually, that he didn't get a top 15 matchup in his last fight, because he did fight after that. And then that he didn't get a top 15 fight in this one. Yeah, I'm just really surprised that he's not getting the top 15 shot. I mean, if he wins this one, which I am favoring him in this one, if he wins this one, I mean, how do you not give him a top 15 fight? He is very, very, very good. Incredible on the ground. And he got, actually, yeah, there we go. The reason why I'm favoring him actually is because he got a first round submission win over Jamie Pickett in February, and that was at catchweight at 195. So size does not matter for Kyle Daukaus here at all. He can deal with the bigger guys and even submit them. Just seriously an incredible grappler and wrestler and submission artist. Just absolutely sensational. As for Dolidze, still very good. He's got a record of 3-1 in the UFC, but not quite against those bigger names that Daukaus has started going against. He's got a win over Laureano Staropoli and a loss to Trevin Giles. Or is it Giles or Giles? I think it's Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles? I think it's Giles. Trevin Giles. In his last two fights. Those are how his last two fights ended. And you know what? He lost to Giles because of, I believe, I wrote down here. Yeah, I didn't write it down, but I do remember, I'm pretty sure, that Giles actually beat Dolidze with his grappling because, yeah, he basically just laid on top of him. But it should be said that Kyle Daukaus just smoked Jamie Pickett, who, by the way, is massive. He could fight at 205. Actually, I think he might be transitioning over to 205. So, I mean, Roman Dolidze is definitely he's in a rough spot here with the wrestling matchup of Daukaus, because Daukaus should be able to pretty easily control him, because he's not only, actually, I should point out, not only did Daukaus wildly control Pickett, who is much bigger than Dolidze, he also controlled Phil Hawes, who again is also fighting today or on the weekend. He also controlled Hawes, who is very big, and Kevin Holland, who is very tall. So, I mean, just all around, doesn't really seem like Dolidze is going to do well with this wrestling matchup. He is going to struggle quite a bit. So that is what I think is going to happen here. We're going to see a dominant decision win for Daukaus. Maybe a submission, but maybe not. And he's also got the power to back it up. So just all around, Dolidze is going to struggle with this one, just even based on his size. Dolidze is a wrestler, which is why I don't think he's going to get submitted. But because of the fact that Daukaus is used to fighting much bigger guys than Dolidze, I think Dolidze is just going to get controlled and that's going to be it. Because again, that's what Giles did to him, and Giles isn't really one of the biggest guys. So yeah, I just have to imagine that that's exactly what's going to happen with Dawkins. And if you look at the odds, we've got Dawkins at minus 240. We're going to be throwing that in a parlay. And Delize at plus 190. So yeah, we're going all in on Dawkins here, and we're putting him in a parlay for sure on this one. Definitely favored in this one. But it's going to be very exciting, I got to say. Well, again, it's one of these hugely exciting matchups. The over-under, minus 150 for over 2.5, and plus 120 for under 2.5. I would say that's pretty fair because, again, I don't know if Dawkins can submit Delize. I mean, he probably could, but that's a tough one. I would say you're much more likely to get a decision on this one. So minus 150, pretty decent odds for that. The next one after that I want to talk about, incredible matchup. You've got Cody Stamann, who was just ranked in his last matchup, lost it, of course, with his devastating first round submission loss to Saeed Nurmagomedov. And on the other side is Eddie Wineland. I love Eddie Wineland. I really do. I mean, even before I started like religiously watching the UFC, I was actually an Eddie Wineland fan just by playing the video games because of his style, because of his image, just everything about Eddie Wineland. I love the guy, but I gotta say, not a good matchup for Eddie Wineland at all. Stamann, very much huge favorite in this one for a very, very good reason. Like I said, he did lose to Saeed Nurmagomedov, Cody Stamann did, in his last one in less than a minute, I think it was. Lost to Merab Dvalishvili, but had a very close, it was a decent competitive fight against Merab, which is saying a lot. And then he had a draw against Song Yadong. So very, very tough matchups this guy has been fighting, and he's been doing very well. He only has one win in his last 5. But like I said, amazing fighter. Wineland also only one win in his last 5 fights, but definitely not as impressive as a run. His last 2 fights ended in first round KOs. Of course, one of them being to the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley, brutal walk-off KO in that one. And he was knocked out by Castaneda in his last one, also in the first round. So not looking good for Wineland. And his one win was against Popov, who was making his UFC debut in that fight. And then before that, he has decision losses going back to 2017. So really hasn't been looking good for Wineland. And I would imagine that this one is not going to go a whole lot better. Again, I'm a huge fan, but not a good matchup for him. Stamann, as usual, he is the shorter fighter in this one, but he is much stronger because he is a pretty muscly, toned, big bantamweight here. Like I said, he was ranked before this one. Before that, though, he had a close fight with Merab, as I said. And Merab, by the way, completely, always relentless with his pressure and his pace. And that's just not something that that Wineland can replicate at all, which is why it's not going to go that well here for him. And Stamann did handle all that pretty well, which is very impressive because Merab is dangerous. So for Stamann to handle that and even get his own wrestling going, and he even managed to stumble Merab at one point, it's just so many things going in that direction. And Wineland's last win, like I said, was to Popov, who was making his UFC debut. And I don't even know if I've seen him since. I didn't really look into it after. I don't even know if he's fought ever since. So I don't know. Not looking good. Eddie is quick with great striking, but doesn't have much of a chance, sadly, against a very well-rounded fighter because Stamann's got the wrestling and the striking, So I think if we don't see a finish, we're going to see a dominant decision. And honestly, I'm actually favoring the decision in this one because Stamen is not a finisher. He's just a dominant decision person. And yeah. But I will say, though, considering Wineland has been finished so much recently, it's definitely not out of the question that we could see another finish here. The odds, obviously heavily favoring, I should say, Cody Stamen at minus 550, Wineland sitting at plus 400. So I'm clearly going with Stamen minus 550, throwing him in any kind of parlay you got. Very much worth it on that one, minus 550. The over-under, minus 158 for over 2.5, and plus 122 for under 2.5. Considering how much Wineland has been finished recently, you could go for the plus 122 for the under. But I gotta say, again, Stamen, not really much of a finisher, very much into dominating in decisions. So might be slightly safer to go with the minus 158. But if you're feeling lucky, if you're feeling a little riskier, not out of the question again to go with plus 122 because Wineland has been finished quite a bit recently. Finally, the last one, the featured prelim, and the one that I'm very excited about it. I think a lot of people are too. This is going to be a great one. It's Adrian Yanez and Tony Kelly. Oh man. Huge fight in the bantamweight division here. And really, I think this is probably, you're getting close to the top 15 with this one for sure. Yanez has been on an absolute tear since his Contender Series win, grabbed himself 3 TKO wins to open up his UFC career, and then got an insane decision win over Davy Grant in November. My God, Davy Grant is so good, but Yanez is better. Excuse me. On the other side, Tony Kelly joined the UFC in 2020, but hasn't really had the same rise to fame. By the way, Yanez also joined in 2020. Kelly opened it up with a loss to Kai Kamaka. Not great, because Kai Kamaka is no longer in the UFC anymore. And followed that up with wins over Ali Al-Casey, who is pretty good, and Randy Costa, who is very good. They're both actually very similar. They're both relentless. They're both really quick strikers. And this is definitely going to be one of the best fights of the night, if not the fight of the night. Of course, you've got the main event, so that's already probably in the front runner for fight of the night. But this one is a close second. It's a very good matchup. But Yanez does seem to carry an edge into this one. Yanez fights a lot like Kamaka did against Kelly. But Yanez clearly is much better than Kamaka, and that's the problem here. Kelly struggled with Kamaka's crisp striking. And although neither man really seems to slow down, Yanez seems to improve as the fight goes on. He really, really picks it up and pushes it in the second and third rounds. So yeah, I really think that's going to help him here because Kelly is going to start to struggle with that pressure and definitely the crisp striking because he's not the most technical crisp striker, whereas Yanez very much is very technical. And not only that, but Kelly is not really much of a finisher. And Yanez took a lot of damage from Grant, and Grant is a much heavier striker than Kelly is. So because he could withstand that, I just can't see Kelly getting that much power in there, and I just can't see it happening for him. So I would say Yanez is going to win a fairly tight decision, I would say, and a scrappy one, a bloody one, an explosive one. I think this is going to be an absolutely insane fight to watch. I cannot wait. And that is the featured prelim, and it is also the last one that we are going to talk about today. We will quickly talk about some of the parlays, and then we'll call it a night. Yeah, and head off to dinner. So, parlays, Dawkins is a clear choice. Hawes is at minus 267, but I gotta say, Daron Wynn is who he's going against, and Wynn is a great wrestler, so it is a lot closer than people think. So I might keep Hawes out of it, but that is a potential option for a parlay there. But yeah, I'm still going with Dawkins though as a one that you definitely got to go with. And then you got to go with Stamen at minus 550. How do you not go with Stamen on that one? Definitely staying away from the ladies. Even though De Paula is minus 267, I'm staying way away from that one. I don't want anything to do with that. And then Ricardo Ramos, minus 313 in his matchup with, what's the first name here? Danny Chavez. So minus 313, Ramos is really good. I would even put that in a parlay. Again, with the ladies, Jędrzejczyk is minus 250, and she looks real good. And I would say you might want to throw that in a parlay, but again, it's close enough that I'm a little bit iffy on it. Yanez, minus 313. Although I am going with him, I don't know if I'm confident enough to throw that in a parlay, because Kelly is that's quite the underdog to have, I would say. So yeah, I'm not sure I'd be throwing that in a parlay. Let's see, Rodriguez at minus 184. I think that's a good shot at a parlay, to be honest. Kevin Holland, clear choice. Come on. Come on. Clear choice at minus 286. I would even go with Cowboy. I'm going with Cowboy in the parlay, minus 172. And Cater is a bit of an iffy one. So a really long parlay, you can mix and match these ones. I'll go through it again. Dawkins, Hawes, Stamen, Ramos, Jędrzejczyk, Holland, Cowboy, and Cater. That's a long one that you can kind of mix and match and play with. But the main one, the one that I'm most confident about, I would say, is Cowboy at minus 172, which again, I don't usually go down minus to under 200 when I recommend these things, but for this one, I'm doing it. And Holland at minus 286, so you've got two there. Rodriguez at minus 184, so that's three. And then what was the other one? Stamen at minus 550. Oh, and then Dawkins at minus 240. So you've got a 4 or 5 leg parlay that I would say is pretty strong right there. I think you've got a great one right there. So those are my parlays for the week. And that is it for me. We'll be back next week. Of course, we're going to be talking, of course, about this one, UFC Austin. The next Ultimate Fighter episode, which of course is going to be the last flyweight matchup. And then we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas. And I believe that is Gamrot. I can actually probably look it up here. It is, Tsarukian and Gamrot. And my God, is that another amazing matchup? Seriously. That's another great one. I mean, Cater and Emmett is fantastic. Tsarukian and Gamrot is fantastic. And then I see we've got, I think that actually might be UFC 276 after that, which is, of course, we're not, I don't know why I'm going into this so much, but we've got Adesanya Cannonier. That's UFC 276. And I believe that is actually what's going to be going on there. But anyway, that's in the future. If you want to watch any of the other sports stuff, Area 51 has got you covered. That's all linked below. Bet99 is linked below. We've got the sign up bonus. And then, of course, all of my socials are down below. To get rid of that banner. My socials are also all below. That would be Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. That's all down there. Yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Another great stream, some more great picks. I'm actually pretty confident about this week, I'm not gonna lie. Especially after that god awful week last week. Holy shit, the results on that one, horrible. Worst one, actually, I'm not even kidding, worst week we've ever had. That is one of only, I believe, 3 times I've ever gone below 50% in the UFC. So absolutely horrible. But this week is looking real good for us. Real good for us. I'm looking forward to it. So I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.